welcome back to the channel. So as you can see, I've got my Stratocaster here today because I went all Uri Geller with the trim arm. Check this. So I've got the base of the trim arm is stuck way down here in these threaded screws, in this threaded screw hole. And I tried a couple things to get it out, and the more I read about it, the more I realized that it was pretty futile, to try to retrieve it at this point. So I just did the simple thing, and if you watched the last video, I ordered a bridge from the Stratosphere that I'm going to install, just because it's not really expensive. I think it was like 28 bucks or something, and it's exactly the kind of bridge that I like on a Strat. It's got the bent steel saddles, and so I'm going to install it really quickly because it's a pretty easy install. And I've got this shorter arm here that's made to go on this thing. This was a longer, I think it was a Squire arm, and it was in a gig bag, and I might have pressed it up against things a little bit too much while traveling. I'm starting to think that's what happened. It was behind my seat in the car, and it was pretty close to some stuff that was behind it, and it was leaning like that, and I think maybe that stressed it, and just me being too rough with it when I was installing it. I did a lot of weird things trying to make little tweaks of my own. They could have goofed it up, but man, this thing looks good. So I'm going to install it, and it should be simple. I'm going to start by just taking the strings off. All the parts are over here, and I'll put a little blanket down to protect the guitar somewhat. This isn't really much of a workspace, but better than what I usually have. I'm usually doing it on my bed at home. And I was going to do that, but then I thought, I'll just do it in here, just because I can get the camera closer and maybe show you what I'm doing. But this is a very simple thing to do. I think anyone can do this. All you got to know is how to use a screwdriver. But one of the things I'll tell you right off the bat that I'm going to do is these strings they've been on this guitar for a while, and I'm not playing shows out right now. When I play shows, I usually replace them every 2 shows. And I'll use Ernie balls when I'm playing live, but at home and recording it's NYXLs. And I like to keep them because they're expensive strings and they still sound good, and I always need strings. There's always something happening when I'm working on a guitar and I need spare strings. I don't know if you can hear it's raining. I'll need spare strings. So I try to preserve them if I can, put them on my kids' guitars and that kind of thing. So I always start by detuning the highest string first so you don't have the whole stress of the neck on the higher strings. So I'll start with those. I'll take off the higher strings first, just so they're not holding so much tension. The lower strings can hold the tension. If you start with the lower strings, by the time you get to the last one, it's holding all the neck tension, so it's more likely to break. So let me take these strings off really quickly, which is a pretty simple operation, and then I will move the camera closer in and show you how to install one of these bridges. Really simple. See you in a second. Okay, so I've got all the strings off. I put them all together. See, look at that. Now I've got 6 strings. I'll kind of wind them up, that if I need spare strings, and this is a full set. What did I do with the E string? Hopefully I didn't misplace that, because I took that one off first. I think it's in here. I think this is 6 strings. But anyway, look at this. See, I got a backup set of strings. If I was on the road and I needed a string, or if I was just at home and suddenly something came up, I like to reuse, recycle, that kind of thing. Just get the most bang for your buck and not be wasting things. Alright, so now, next step. I've got the strings off. Now we can see the bridge. The bridge is just sitting right here. Now, I'm looking at my new bridge that I've got over here, and this is the screwdriver I'm going to use. It should be the right size for those screws. Yes, I like a bigger one just to get it out easier. But what I'm going to do first is this intonation and this setup, the height, everything was just perfect. I mean, it was never going out of tune. Everything was just perfect on this thing. So I want to basically duplicate that. I may even take these saddles off and put them on these, because these are slightly different saddles I got from all parts. But these look good, so I might just let these be the saddles. But I'm gonna get the measurements the same. This one I know I have to push it almost all the way up. The 2 E strings are almost all the way up. And in these, I'm just going to match them up, you know, so if you can see what I'm talking about. We've got this space here in the screws. So here's your screws on the bridge right here. And see, there's this space here, and that's how much, that's your intonation space. And on here, you can see kind of the pattern. These are all the way up, and then these are kind of like different heights. So I'm going to just match that by screwing these to be the same distance as these before I even install it. So that's what I'm going to do first, and I'm going to do that with these smaller screwdrivers. I could also use my little D'Addario measurement card to measure that space. If I was going to use the same saddles, I would take note of it, take them off, put them on here, and then just get my numbers and match it up again to keep it the same. But we'll see if we can just use the saddles that are on here, and I won't have to flip them off. I'm going to just flip them out. I'm just going to match them up. All right, I'll be back in a second. Okay, as you can see here, I've got this screwdriver, and I've pretty much matched up. See, like on these, the E strings, I've got them all pretty much all the way up because that's the way these are. And I think I might have a little more string space with these. So this is going to have to be adjusted, you know, once I get the strings on and get the guitar going. But I figured, hey, get it as close as you can, you know, now. But I have a feeling I may have to switch these out just because I don't know if they'll be the same height. That's what I'm going to check now. I'm going to check the height and try to get these to the same height as these with the Allen wrench. Alright, so I'll come right back. I've got these about the same, but like I said, I may be just taking these off and matching them up here. Be right back. Okay, the next step, I put my reading glasses on here so I could get really close to this thing, and I've got my little Allen key, and I've pretty much matched up the heights. These saddles, these are bent steel saddles, both of them are, but these were all parts ones, and they have a deeper groove in them. And what I did is I used the 3 big ones from 2 different sets, so I'd have all big ones because I like my action high. But I think that this is like the same height. If I measure it, I'm going to use my little Allen tool here to get kind of a rough measurement. Yeah, I think it's like the same height because these have a bigger dip in them that the string kind of sits down into it. These are looking, you know, I've got them up pretty high and it's looking pretty sturdy. It's the same kind of idea. It's the bent steel saddles. I'll probably have to adjust the intonation a little bit, but I pretty much matched it up here with what I have here. And it's probably a little different because these saddles are a little different, but I at least got myself pretty close. So, height is good. Everything else is good. I'm going to set this down, and now I'm going to take these and just take these babies off. Take these screws out. So I'll just kind of loosen up most of the way on the first 2. See if we're still in focus on the camera. Yeah. Okay. So this might take a second. I don't want to use any kind of drills or anything with this because I don't want to risk, you know, messing up the wood inside where the screws are. There goes these screws. And I'm going to use my new screws. These aren't too bad looking, but they're a little chucked up. And since this guitar still looks new and it doesn't have like a beat up look, this will be an improvement. I have a nice new shiny bridge with shiny screws. And I've done a lot of experimentation with this guitar, just setup wise, until I finally took it to a pro. He got it dialed in for me the rest of the way, and then I did a little bit more tweaking to get it to be exactly the way I wanted it, but I could tell that he knew what he was doing better. He got the whole thing down right and it was holding tune. But I'm weird about guitars. I like high action. I have a particular way that I string the guitars that I really think keeps Strats in tune. I'll show you how to do that too. I've talked about it a lot in other videos, but I'm a big believer in it. Oh, and you know what? The other thing I have to do is I got to flip it over, and I'm going to release the tension on the claw. So that will allow me to just take the springs off real quick. Should have done that first. So let me grab the screwdriver. Okay, now So I got the screwdriver here. I'm going to go into these two screws here in the trim claw and just bring those down a tad. Just relax them so that the springs aren't so tight. I'll back these out, taking note of how far up they are, it's almost all the way up there. Can maybe try to play around with that too. Now that we'll have new saddles, it might change something a little, and I could back the tension up, maybe get it a little more relaxed. The higher up it is, the tighter the trim arm gets. But I think the reason the trim arm broke is because I was using a longer Squire one. Is that out of focus again? I was using a longer Squire one, and it was in a bag. I'm going to restart this just to make sure it's not out of focus so you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, so I'm loosening up these trim screws. That might have gone out of focus when I reached for the screwdriver. Okay, so now the springs, now that I've backed off, they're easy to get out. And that kind of makes life a lot easier. If you just loosen that baby up, I'm actually going to loosen it up even more so that we don't have any tension on the springs when we reinstall. Okay, so now this should probably just fall off of here. Yeah. Okay, so now here's the guitar. Sans bridge. Here's the bridge. I'm just make sure my measurements are correct. Yep, everything lines up. This is the original one. In here is where it's trapped. What you can do, from what I read, is you can drill into it and then try to back it up. But I figured that wasn't guaranteed to work, and I could have spent a lot of time, trying to get it to work. So to avoid frustration, just spent the 28 bucks or whatever. Stratosphere got me a new one. And this time I won't mess it up by putting the wrong kind of arm in it. Alright, so I'm going to drop it right into the guitar. This is just super too easy. Oh, you know what I'm going to do real quick? I'm going to wipe the guitar down while I have this off. Just get all this clean. I'll be right back. Okay, I've got the little rag here. I'm going to wipe off all the dust that accumulates between the pickups, the electromagnetic field, creating that. Wipe all this down. Okay. Nice. Alright, now what we'll do first is we'll just drop in and install this new bridge. Okay, so it goes right in, obviously. You just want to line up the screw holes as best as you can. Fits perfectly. I always worried that I made a mistake and ordered the wrong part until I actually see it go into place, and then I can sigh a sigh of relief. I'm going to move these old screws and old springs out of the way. I have brand new springs, brand new screws. The trim claw, I'm going to just leave that as is. Don't need a new trim claw because there's nothing special about a piece of metal, and it has a solder where you ground the guitar, so we don't want to have to mess around with that, redoing that and all that. So I'm going to just spill all this out here, and we'll start loading up screws. Make sure these go in okay. Oh wait, these are trim cloth springs. Too big. Don't want those. Well, that's just one. Yeah, here's the other one. Do not want to do the wrong spring. So two of them are these big, long, they're like 1.25 inches maybe, and these are like 1 inch, maybe 3/4, something like that. It's nice and easy finding the hole. Didn't want to drill any new holes in there. This soft wood. Okay, that already looks like it's going to be too far. See, I think my adjustments are going to be helped by the fact that these saddles are a little smaller. I'm going to adjust the intonation on this before I even get any further. There. Yeah, okay. So I got the first one in. Now I'm going to go to the other side, this other E. And this will be something we can discuss later, how taut you put these in. Like what I remember is like this, the two E's positions, those screws should go down the tightest of all and then the other ones can be less tight. If not, I could be wrong. And I'm going to do some more research, and I'm not going to finish this install completely, and that I'll still be tweaking it. I'll just have it, you know, on here, and you can see how easy it was to do it. So if you're thinking about doing it yourself, it won't seem so intimidating. Most of the repairs I do are pretty simple ones because I'm not that advanced. So then I'm bringing this one down, and I won't, maybe I'll take this one down all the way flush so it holds it to the body of the guitar. You know what, for right now I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just going to get these screws in. I'm not going to worry about how low or high they are, because I can see that the more I screw it down, the more it's picking it up, and we want the tension on the other side. Before we start buckling this thing down, we want to have the tension on the other side so it doesn't get all wonky and bent or whatever. Just trying to be careful. So I'm going to take this screw down. This is the 4th screw. Got 2 more. I'm not going very far with them. I'm just going in enough to, you know, when I see that they're sinking down, I stop. I don't want to pick up the bridge too much. I see it moving again. So we'll just keep all these screws light here. And what this allows the trim to do is to move. If you don't have them too tight, it can kind of get loose and lift up and down. Okay, so I've got all these kind of the same amount. I'm even backing off this one. They're all kind of like not all the way down, but down. All right, so now we're going to flip it over. It'll hold in place now. And you can see how it kind of, back here it's sort of towards the wood. So I've got to get the springs to pull it back towards the guitar. Okay, so if I remember, I like to do mine where they are 3 springs and a V pattern, you know, like that. Seems to be the right amount of tension for me. So let me see how I usually do that. I go here, with that one. Oh wait, I always start with the block, then go to the spring. So here's the first one, and now I'll go here to the middle. I'm going to start on the block. Let's see, yeah, and I'll go to the next hole. Sorry, I always like to start with the hole first. It sinks in easier. Then pull it up to the claw as opposed to the other way. I don't know why I keep doing it the wrong way. Guess I haven't done this in a minute. Alright, so the last one, I'm putting it right here in the hole. See? And I'm just picking it up to the last position. Oops. So you always want to make sure that end is all the way down. I'm going to come back out a little bit with these screws to make it easier to get to that thing. Okay, so oops, wrong one. I want to put this in this hole so it has that kind of V thing going. There. Now, finally, okay, so look, all 3 springs are in. You could put 4 or 5 springs if you wanted to, but I usually do 3 in this V pattern. And these 3 springs, I usually try to use new springs all together instead of adding one, you know, and the rest of them are old or whatever. Okay, so now we're going to just pull it back to where it was so that we don't get any wonkiness out of the setup, because it took a long time to get this guitar dialed in. It was my second guitar I built, and I didn't really build it because Toby Russell got the wood together and did all that work. The routing, the neck is by Fender, so I didn't build that obviously, and Toby actually helped me do some finish routing and other final install bits, so I really just kind of put it together. I didn't build it. I did do the finish, did do the electronics. Are we out of focus again? Okay, I've got the 3 springs in. I've got the screws up about to where they were. And the 3 springs are like in this kind of like V formation. It looks cool and it has the right amount of tension for me. Now, remember we were talking about the height of the bridge. The next thing I could do is take the saddles off of this one and put them on here and replicate exactly what I had. But I think that these saddles are set up in pretty much the same way so that I don't have to worry about that. And so the strings I'm going to use, D'Addario 11 through 52. Sometimes I use 1148, but lately I've been doing 1152 just because that makes the higher strings thicker, and I just find you get more tone with those higher strings being thicker. Okay. But there's a point where, you know, it gets so thick that it's not comfortable to play. I just seem to prefer to torture myself with the heavier gauges. Most people pick up my guitar and they don't want to play it because it feels too high. The action's too high, the strings are too heavy. But hey, you got to just do what works for you. I like the tone that comes out with the heavier gauge strings. Okay, so I'm going to run this E string. Do not like wasting these expensive strings, so careful not to make a mistake here. Okay, that's coming through. And yeah, I think this is going to work beautifully, which is going to save me a lot of time. Yeah, it looks like it's the same action. I'm going to make sure by measuring this before I put the string on, because I don't want to risk this not being as high as I want it to be, and then I have to take the strings off and ruin those, all that. So I'm going to measure this real quick. Okay, so success. I put that high E string on, and it is high enough. I measured it again to make sure that it was the same height as this saddle, this high E saddle, and it is. In fact, it might be a little higher. Listen, I don't have it tuned all the way up because, like I said, I don't want to put the pressure of the neck on it, but it works. Hold on, the camera's gone bad again. I'm going to show you how to do this stringing method. I know I've done it before, but in case somebody hasn't seen those videos, it's awesome. Okay, so I've moved the camera because of the stupid focus. Alright, so install went well. I guess I should put the arm on real quick just to make sure that that goes on. Alright, so the arm goes in, you turn it around until it gets stiff, or however you like to do it. I usually take it all the way down. And then there you go. Okay, so I'm going to continue setting it up and we'll worry about that later. But the main thing is I'm looking for the purple string. That's the black one. Oh, here it is, the purple string. Okay, so this is the B string. And I'm just going to show you really quickly. I believe that this is the magical way to string a Stratocaster, or any trim guitar, really. I string all my guitars like this. Okay, so you bring the string through, right? I'll put it up like this. Bring the string through. Alright, so let me put it on the... I'll move this thing out of the way. See if you can see me better from way over there. Okay, so got it down here. I brought the string through, right? It's all the way up to here. What you want to do is you want to get your tuning machine head where the hole is, like, say if this is north and south, you want to go in east and west. Alright? And this one's got to go inside of the retainer down here, whatever you call this thing, I always forget. String tree. Alright, so now we're going to go through. I went through the string tree. I'm having a hard time finding the little hole. There's not much light back here. Okay, so I got it through the hole. I'm going to make sure it's in the little string tree, which doesn't matter. You can kind of push it down later, which is what I'll do. Okay, so here it is. I'm pulling it. I've got the string through that hole, right? The east-west hole. And I'm pulling it as hard as I can this way, really creating tension. Now, while I do that, I'm going to come around the back of the post with the string. So I'm coming around like this, and then you're going to go under the string. So I'm going to go under the string so that I kind of catch it. I'm going to pull the remainder now under that string and then wrap it over and just kind of hold it right here. Then I'll turn this until it tightens up. And I'm keeping it loose because usually I start with the heavier strings first. But that's how you do it. Let me do another one. Okay, so now just to be careful, E string is silver, second string is purple, the third, the G string, is green. I think it fell down over here. I really dislike the way this company packages these strings. I wish they did like Ernie Ball and put them in envelopes so that you just kind of have them separated. Once you get them out, they're all like wound together, which sometimes causes them to kink. And I don't know, I've just had more hassles trying to install these strings than any other string. And I think it's because they just put them together, you know, they don't package them separately so that they don't get all mangled or lost as you're trying to do it. Okay, so this one might be easier to see because it's thicker. Let me see if I can get closer to the camera without losing focus. I've got the east-west thing going here. I'm going in and I'm pulling the string taut through the nut, pulling it as hard as I can, getting a good angle there. Now, I'm going to pull it back towards me, like that, see? I'm going to kind of push it down and go underneath that string. Don't get caught up in the strings you've already done. Now, once you pull it through, you wrap it back over and hold it down up here to get some tension. And then you just dial that baby in till you get it connected. Now at the end, obviously, you're going to cut these string remains off. Pretty cool, huh? I highly recommend this for the Stratocaster. And for any, like if you have a Gibson at home with a Bigsby, any kind of trim guitar, it's magic. I discovered it. I think it's the Martin way of doing it. It's called a tie, like a tie wrap or something like that. Oh well. Hopefully this helped. This is an easy thing to do. You don't need much instruction. But if you've been holding back, worried, you know, that it would be something you couldn't handle, I think after watching me putter through it, you can do it too. Next time.